Well, my third video for today, it's so sunny outside, it should be so warm in here, but it's so cold. All right, my third video for today, for this I'm going back to the chronological survey. This would be the 18th section, 18 point, who knows what page, 2, 3, depends how big you write. But I'm working down through stories from Hebrew literature, the Torah, Genesis. Methusala isn't really a story, I don't think. But he's worth noting because I don't know how many years he lived, over 900 years. I mean, people who are determined to understand this scripture absolutely word by word, really have to deal with that. Of these ages, like Noah, well, I don't know how old he was, over 600 years or something. How could people live to be that old? I think a lot of people would say, well, it was a matter of words, but I don't want to get into that, because those who are determined that if it says 900 years, well, that's what it is. Anyway, Methusala, sometimes you'll hear his name mentioned as he's supposed to be the oldest man who ever lived. He's as old as Methuselah. There's the story, if you read through Genesis, you'll run through the story of the Tower of Babel, or Babel. Now that's the story, so I put it in quotes, and according to that story, humans were building a tower, and it got too high, and God didn't like it. It was getting too close to the heavens, and so he needed to put a stop to it. And so what he did was he confused their tongues. The confusion of tongues. Note the hubris that humans were getting too close to God, they were getting too high, and they had to be put down. Well, that idea of the confusion of tongues, the idea was before that, everybody understood everybody else. All the languages were the same. But then, in the story, there came a point where suddenly people couldn't understand each other, so they couldn't work together anymore. It's a really neat story. Now, in terms of linguistics, I can make a connection here, because I had told you that Indo-European is a language that, I don't know if I gave you the number, but about 80 or 90 modern-day languages come from Indo-European. Well, where did Indo-European come from? If you want to go further back, well, some linguists have tried to do that. Maybe they will. Computers help a lot nowadays. Can you go back further than that? Is it possible that there was a point where all humans spoke one language and all the 5,000 modern-day languages have drifted apart from that? I'm not so sure that will ever be completely settled. But in Genesis, there is an explanation for that. Yes, Genesis says, there was a time, but God confused them on purpose. A neat story. Noah's Ark. Well, you'll come to the story of Noah's Ark. I'm just jumping along, I don't know, a dozen generations, more than that at a time, if you count. Noah's Ark, it's a very famous story. I don't even know if I have to tell it. I talked about it before, because in the Epic of Gilgamesh, what Utnapishtim said had happened to him is so similar. It's almost the same story. He was warned. He was the only man who was worth keeping, and he was warned, get ready, there's a flood coming. And so he loaded his ark, and an ark is a boat with pairs of animals, male and female. And the flood came. And this story is so well known, I feel silly telling it. The flood came and killed everybody off, except for Noah and his family. Ham, Shem, and Jephthah, I think, were his 3 sons. I think, and their wives, and they were there. But anyway, there comes the point where he lets the birds fly and come back. Now, if you're a real stickler about just how this story has to be, that's a problem, because within the Old Testament, the story is in there more than once, and it's hard to sort that out. It was exactly how did that go. Well, anyway, we run into the number 40. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And that number 40, it becomes a theme, really, in Hebrew literature. We're going to see we're going to run into it again and again. And then at the end, when the waters receded, I should have written Mount Ararat as a kind of a character. Mount Ararat. That's where the ark was to came to rest. And then there was a rainbow, and I'll never let the story go as I find out, can any students tell it? And they're usually very happy to tell it, because some of them know it well. I'll say, well, what about there at the end? And they'll come up with the rainbow. And the rainbow, according to that story, was a symbol that showed God's promise that He would not destroy the world with floods again. Well, that gives an excuse to jump back to the sixth section of your notes. This is literary devices, 6.1. It might be 6.2 by now, and there skip a line or two. I don't remember what the last literary device was. It might have been allusion. Skip a line or two. And write down symbolism all the way over to the left. Symbolism is a literary device as well. That's when something stands for something else. A flag stands for so much more than just that flag. A cross to a Christian stands for so much more than just a device to torture somebody who is dying. A swastika. I'll put that on the board sometimes, but students get upset really to see it. A swastika was so important to the Germans as Hitler rose to power, and it has come to symbolize so much. It's hard to even talk about it. Well, anyway, those are symbols. Well, here's the oldest example I know of in literature of the use of symbolism. The rainbow was not just a rainbow. We are told that that's a symbol, that stands for God's promise that He would not destroy the world by flood again. Okay, well, I feel like I'm a little bit hurried. I can only hope that you'll be back tomorrow, and also that tomorrow will be a little bit warmer than today is. See you then.